Hi, my name is Danimal Cannon. Better consult with Stellar Cartography because today we're going where no one has gone before, right here on Trek Watch. Welcome back to Trek Watch, the show where we rank and review our favorite show, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Today's episode is the 6th episode of Season 1, where no one has gone before. Without further ado, let's dive into the plot. To start off this episode, Starfleet is sending over a propulsion expert to help improve the warp drive on the Enterprise. However, Commander Riker has looked over the specs that they got sent over, and he thinks they're garbage.
In my opinion, sir, they're gibberish.
Gibberish?
The propulsion expert is named Kaczynski, and he's, you could call him a real charmer.
A ship's engines should be the concern of a ship's captain.
And you, sir, are listed as
Mr. Kaczynski's assistant. My actual name is unpronounceable by humans.
I like this explanation. They should probably use it more often.
And the other one is assistant.
He's the puzzle. With him, nothing. Empty space. It's as though he isn't even here.
Listen, I really love Marina Sirtis, but the writers gave her terrible wooden dialogue and exposition here. Writers, show, don't tell. This gives away way too much of the plot. Today's rotating cast of Season 1 Chief Engineers features Lieutenant Commander Argyle. Let's see if he sticks around for long. Kaczynski gives a big speech about how the crew thinks the schematics are bogus, but that's just because he's so advanced and beyond them.
So, you said, what's going on? This doesn't work. Kaczynski's a fraud.
So to me, Kaczynski is definitely modeled after that overconfident businessman archetype that spouts meaningless buzzwords. Man, this show really had it in for the 80s corporate America, didn't it? I found this BS generator online. Let's try it out. Let's see if I can generate some Kaczynski-style dialogue. Incredibly Matrix effective materials.
Is this merely mechanics? Or is it nature that we deal with in all of this?
Progressively scale low-risk, high-yield methodologies.
And what else than nature are the elementals of space and time?
Synergistically onboard an expanded array of content.
You go in a straight line, confident, yes, perhaps even innovative in a minimalist sort of way.
Holistically cloudify the best-of-breed convergence. I couldn't even say that with a straight face.
I applied the energy asymptomatically. I anticipated some tilling, but it didn't occur. Now that was my error.
Rapidiously brand leverage potentialities. Oh my god.
How could it? It's meaningless. Yes, you might as well let him try.
Oh, yes, we might as well let him try it. You are too generous. Boy! Don't play with that.
The boy!
Kaczynski's assistant takes a shining to the brightness of Wesley and his intuition of warp fields. Oh, it's gonna be a Wesley Crusher Wonder Boy Genius episode, isn't it? The Enterprise tests out Kaczynski's new warp system. But something goes wrong and Kaczynski's assistant starts to phase in and out of existence as the Enterprise passes Warp 10. And Kaczynski looks like somebody who has royally messed up.
According to these calculations, we've not only left our own galaxy, but passed through two others, ending up on the far side of Triangula, the galaxy known as M33.
Science time!
Alright nerds, so loving astronomy and loving Star Trek go hand in hand. So we're gonna have a fun little science lesson with Professor Danimal Cannon. The types of distances we deal with on astronomical scales are really difficult to comprehend, so I came up with a little visual aid for you. You may or may not know this, but all of Star Trek takes place in our Milky Way galaxy, which I have pictured right here. On the right, you can see the large and small Magellanic Clouds. Anyways, let's overlay a map from the video game Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, which I guess is technically canon. In Star Trek, they divide the galaxy into quadrants: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. Earth is just about directly on the border of the Alpha and Beta quadrants. In fact, let's go back to our original view of the galaxy, and we can zoom in on our sun, and it should give you a little perspective. Zoom! As you can tell by that flyby, our galaxy is a pretty big place. In fact, 90% of Trek takes place in this little area bordering the Alpha and Beta quadrants.
In 3 centuries of space travel, we've charted just 11% of our galaxy.
Now let's take notice of where Star Trek Voyager takes place. If you look at the top right part of the galaxy, that's where Voyager got sent to, and the whole plot of that entire series is their trip home, which was originally projected to take 70 years to get from the edge of the Delta Quadrant back to Earth. Now let's switch back to the regular view of the galaxy. If we look over this way, we can see two galaxies in the distance. The bigger one you may know is Andromeda. The smaller one, that's M33. So this is the place where the Enterprise just went. So if it takes 70 years for Voyager to make it home from the edge of our own galaxy, let's see what the Enterprise's journey to M33 looks like. Pretty cool! Alright, let's go back. That's 2.7 million light years, folks. Anyways, I love this stuff, and I thought it was really cool how Trek takes the effort to reference some real science. It also makes you think about how all of Star Trek takes place in one galaxy, and yet there are estimated to be hundreds of billions of other galaxies in the observable universe alone. Fun facts! Alright, let's get back to the show. So the Enterprise is now in Galaxy M33, and while I enjoy these visuals, in real life, the galaxy would essentially look identical to our own. But that doesn't really bother me, it's just fun sci-fi schlock. Trying to take credit for this momentous occasion, Kaczynski is increasingly full of it. Just look at that smile.
And I made a mistake. A wonderful, incredible mistake.
Stanley Camill is absolutely fabulous at portraying this big fat phony. He's just a fantastic character. You want to punch that grin off of his face as he lies through his teeth. Kaczynski's assistant is sick from his actions during the warp maneuver. Wesley wants to help, but then he also discovers how Kaczynski's assistant was able to make the Enterprise travel beyond warp speed.
That space and time and thought aren't the separate things they appear to be.
Hey, isn't that the plot to Interstellar?
That boy, don't ever say that again.
The boy.
Anyways, Kaczynski's assistant has a gentle warmth to his acting, which is really aided by the Dire Dire Doc synth music in the score during this scene.
Such dangerous nonsense.
Wesley tries to tell Riker what's really going on.
I'm sure this is fascinating, Wesley, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about it, but not right now.
Kaczynski tries to get the Enterprise back home with a repeat of his warp maneuver.
I'll just do what I did before.
However, his assistant begins to phase again and they accidentally travel over 1 billion light years. And this time, they end up in some sort of magical space ice cavern or something. All of a sudden, Worf's childhood pet appears, a warthog with spikes glued to it. And then it disappears. There's some really freaky stuff going on here. Like Picard accidentally falling into infinity. Oops, head clipped. Tasha finds her pet cat too. And she's back with rape gangs. Listen, this is the third time in 6 episodes that they've referenced the rape gangs. Is that the only thing that it says in her character bio?
I was at the colony where I grew up, being chased by a rape gang.
In fact, it seems the entire crew is hallucinating all sorts of fantasies. This guy is playing Mozart. Other people seem to be having real-life nightmares. Picard runs into his mom having tea in the hallway.
Mama?
This episode is starting to turn into a horror movie, I think. Picard's mom cryptically reveals that the Enterprise is at the end or the outer rim of the universe, which in real life, I just want to say, is not a concept that holds any kind of meaning, but whatever. Picard begins to realize that while the Enterprise is in this ice space cavern, their thoughts and emotions can manifest into reality. Essentially, they're in the space Feywild for you Dungeons & Dragons fans. The crew laments that they were hoodwinked by Kaczynski and realize they should have been listening to Wesley all along, who may I say is wearing a lovely, chunky future sweater. Where can I get one of those? While Dr. Crusher tries to revive Kaczynski's assistant, the crew is consistently mean to Wesley.
What is the boy doing here?
The boy.
He seems to have developed some sort of special attachment to the boy.
The boy.
My name is Wesley, Commander Riker.
He knows.
You guys are terrible. Kaczynski's assistant reveals himself to being called the Traveler. Thank God I don't have to say the word Kaczynski's assistant anymore. Jesus Christ. The Traveler reveals that thought is the basis of all reality, and he is a lens that can focus that thought into energy.
I have certain abilities They give me a knowledge of propulsion.
The Traveler tells Picard that Wesley is a chosen one.
And such musical genius as I saw in one of your ship's libraries, one called Mozart. Wesley is such a person, not with music, but with the equally lovely intricacies of time, energy, propulsion.
Wesley is apparently Space Mozart. So in order to get back home, the Enterprise sends their thoughts and prayers to the Traveler.
That you center your thoughts on your duty or on the welfare of the one called the Traveler. Think of giving him some of your strength.
Why didn't Voyager try that?
Engage.
With a tender handhold from Wesley using the power of friendship, the Traveler is able to phase the Enterprise back to their original point of origin as the Traveler disappears.
And our position reads exactly what it was before this sleigh ride began, sir.
Have the boy sent to the bridge number 1. The boy!
And to conclude this episode, due to his importance during the mission, Wesley gets promoted to acting ensign because of the suggestion made by the Traveler to Picard. Alright, so that was Where No One Has Gone Before. I like this one. This episode was directed by Rob Bowman, who was 27 at the time. Beats the crap out of what I was doing when I was 27. Or was it? This episode features Eric Menyuk as the Traveler, who was actually a finalist to be the actor who played Data. It's hard to see anybody but Brent Spiner portraying Data, but I could definitely see that working with his soft vocal delivery style. I guess they decided that Data couldn't have a space comb-over, though. This episode embodies a lot of what I love about science fiction. It takes the universe we live in and asks really big questions like, what if we could travel to the next galaxy? What if we could travel to the end of the universe? What would we find? I love that Star Trek doesn't take place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Star Trek is us on Earth contending with a potential future of our species. It isn't an allegory, it's a take on real life. Watching Star Trek may inspire you to learn more about the galaxy we live in and what it means to be so small in an infinite universe. Now, while this episode borrows from real-life astrophysics, it's mostly nonsense. And I'm okay with that. I mostly care that my science fiction series stay logically consistent within itself. And while there are notable discrepancies, Star Trek has done a fantastic job of staying internally consistent throughout the decades. But hey, that's what I think. Let's see what the computer has to say about this episode. Let's pull up the old LCARS display and do an analysis. Alright, you guys should know how this works by now, and if you don't, you need to subscribe and go watch the previous episodes. But if you don't know, our first metric is the horniness meter. We love to see how horny Star Trek can get, and I love to quantify it. Looks like we've got a reading coming in, and our horniness meter is... oh my god. It's a 0! I've spent far too much time talking about cringy scenes so far in this series, and it's just so refreshing to have an episode where I don't need to wince at my screen. And that's not to say that I don't like some horny scenes in my Star Trek, but you can still tell great stories without forcing in unnecessary boners. Our next reading coming in on the old computer display is our favorite PTSD meter. Traveling through uncharted space has its share of hazards, and our crew is gonna have some tough memories to deal with when they get back home. The PTSD reading on this episode is gonna come in at a 7. While the crew was never really in danger, their nightmares became manifest, and Tasha Yar was literally reliving a PTSD moment while at her job. All I'm saying is falling out of a turbolift into the blackness of space is literally the stuff of my personal nightmares. You're welcome. And finally, we have our most important metric over here at Trek Watch, the thought-provoking meter. Star Trek is at its best when it's teaching us something about ourselves or life itself. Our thoughts, our feeling are coming in, and I'm sorry, I gotta give this one a 3 out of 10. The whole space-time is made of thoughts and feelings, it sounds more like hippie woo-woo BS than any sort of real insight. I will admit it makes for some pretty good TV though. Now it's time to rank this episode on our tier list. I have a lot of feelings about this one. On the plus side, this is a character-driven episode. Kaczynski and the Traveler are just fantastically written characters and are a blast to watch them interact with the crew throughout the episode. You're gonna hear me say this a lot during Trek Watch, but Star Trek isn't great because warp drives are cool and photon torpedoes make big booms. It's always been the characters. I'd rather watch the crew hang out and play poker than watch Planet Vulcan explode with the detail of 100 hours of CGI rendering. I also like that this episode has lasting consequences. They really tie together that Wesley arc that they've been pushing for several episodes, and the Traveler goes on to appear in future episodes, and even Kaczynski gets a shout out later in the series. Wesley becomes a full member of the crew, and this episode matters, and that's important. Now for the negative. The crew is pretty passive during this episode. In fact, nothing they do matters, they're just along for the ride. There's no clever idea or thoughtful diplomacy that gets them out of this jam. They're just at the mercy of a more powerful being, which, by the way, has been the case for 3 out of 5 episodes in this season. That said, I do think it's the best episode of Season 1 so far, and I'm gonna have to say that mostly because I just love Kaczynski's performance. It's gonna be a B on this one. Hope you agree with me. Alright. What did you think of Where No One Has Gone Before? Did I get it right? Do you loathe Wesley Crusher with every fiber of your being? Let me know in the comments. And be sure to like and subscribe. That way we can meet again in the next mission. Peace out from Danimal Cannon. The boy. The boy. The boy. The boy.
The boy.